And so one of the first questions that we had was, who are the four horsemen mentioned in chapter 6?
This is really fascinating to me because of all the sermons I've ever preached, I got more kind of emails after that sermon about the four horsemen. And so the question came up a lot. And what's interesting is I do take what's probably a minority opinion among New Testament scholars, people who study Revelation. But the horsemen numbers 2, 3, and 4 aren't super controversial, right? It's war, famine, and death. This is Revelation 6. So the horseman number 2 represents war, horseman number 3 represents famine, and then the last one is death. The question is, who's the first one, right? And so there's kind of 4 different positions among scholars, New Testament commentators on Revelation. 2 are positive and 2 are negative. So for some, negatively, they would say this is the Antichrist. He's like a counterfeit. Others would say it's a symbol of the kings of the earth kind of running around, enslaving people and building empires and chopping the world up for their own kind of satisfaction to line their own pockets.
Sure.
Those are the 2 negative ones. Number 3, positively, some would say this is a way of symbolizing the expanse of the gospel, right? Because the image, the white is always associated with the New Jerusalem. It's the color of the redeemed. There's a lot of clues there that suggest this is a positive image. And so that's one way to come at it. Another way to come at it is that this is actually an image of the Messiah. That's the view I take. It's the view I put forward in the sermon. And because, just if you read it, I watched as the Lamb, this is chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a white horse. So white is the color of the redeemed. So that indicates that it's a positive symbol.
Sure.
Its rider held a bow. What's striking about this is that is an instrument of war, but it doesn't have any arrows. So it's like it's an instrument of war that doesn't have the thing that makes it hurt, right? Which so it's not the folks who think it's the Antichrist are saying like this is a counterfeit Messiah who's out wreaking havoc, except he doesn't have arrows in his bow.
So he can't wreak the havoc.
He can't wreak the havoc. That's right. A bow with no arrows can't really kill anybody. Maybe you could like hit him over the head with it or something. But I don't think that's what's going on here. So white horse, white is the color of the redeemed. He's got a bow with no arrows, so it's not sharp. He's given a crown, and the crown here is a symbol of his authority. Some people sort of say, well, he's given a crown, so that means it's not the Messiah because Jesus already has authority, except that in the New Testament, the giving of authority to Jesus is a pretty consistent theme. So at the end of Matthew, Jesus says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, right? In Philippians 2, Jesus is given the name that's above every names. And so I think this is very much like that in that he's given a crown as a way of emphasizing the ascension of Jesus, Acts chapter 1, to the place of authority, right? So that's number 3, he has a crown. And the Greek word for crown here is always associated with the redeemed. That's 3 reasons. He goes out to conquer, and conquering language is frequently associated with the redeemed as well. So there's multiple reasons here for this to be
a positive,
an image of the Messiah. And the 5th one is how much it matches with the image of Jesus later in Revelation. Jesus is explicitly the rider on the white horse in chapter 19. So you have 5 reasons to think that this is an image, at least positively and probably of Jesus. And then, so one of the objections is, well, the Lamb opens the seals. And if the Lamb is the Messiah, how can he then ride out on a horse? Except it's a vision, right? It's apocalyptic literature. It's Revelation. You expect to see the same reality from different angles again and again and again, or you should anyway. So those are some of the reasons I think we should think of the first horseman as an image of the Messiah, Jesus, riding out, being given authority to reign after his resurrection. It's an apocalyptic way of envisioning what we get in Acts chapter 1.
So you've kind of identified your view as a minority report on what this first horseman represents.
That's right.
How does that impact the meaning from the standard interpretation of this passage?
Well, I don't know if there is a standard interpretation. So since you've got four, it's not clear to me there's a consensus, right? So like there's the Antichrist view that is sort of associated with what you might call premillennial dispensationalism. Largely, it's not exclusively. You get some other folks who would say it's an Antichrist figure.
Okay.
But I've got big questions about that anyway, because you don't get.
We'll talk a little bit more about that.
You don't get Antichrist language in Revelation at all. So it is one of those things where I really don't think there's a consensus among like academic theologians. There's a big debate.
Yeah.
But it's not clear to me that there's one view that's the standard view.
Okay.
It's just that the one I've articulated is probably held by a few less people than some of the others.
Right.
It's not as popular. And one of the reasons you might get more of the Antichrist, like if you just Google this on the internet, you're going to get, premillennial dispensationalist, this is an Antichrist, counterfeit Messiah guy.
Yeah.
But I think there's serious problems with that view. Like if that's true, you need to tell me why this is the only time an unredeemed person wears white. You need to tell me why this is the only time an unredeemed person wears a Stephanos crown. You need to tell me why the bow doesn't have an arrow.
Yeah.
Right. There's all these reasons. You have to give an account for all of those things. And you have to tell me why we should call this the Antichrist when that word doesn't appear in Revelation.
Yeah.
What are the implications of, if it is the Messiah, him coming out first? Yeah,
that's a great question. So it's a way of emphasizing the sovereignty of the Messiah in history. And so if you think about the section, you got these 6 seals that are open. The 7th one comes later. Then the vision begins with an image of the Messiah and ends with a vision of Messiah.
Yeah.
So you get the ascension at the beginning of the chapter, and then you get the reality of the rebellion, a horseman symbolizing war, one famine, one death. Then when the 5th seal is opened, you see the saints under the altar, and they're crying out for vindication. Yeah. So there's the reality of the rebellion and the reality of like the really bad consequences of that. The wrong people die sometimes. And then it ends with this section comes to a conclusion with the 6th seal, where is the kings of the earth running from the wrath of the Lamb, right? So you've got the rebellion and you've got the faithful, and all of that is bookended by this image of the Messiah coming out to conquer and judge.
So all of history from the point of the ascension begins and ends with Jesus, and all kind of begins and culminates in that same point.
That's what the seals function to show. It's a way of showing us an image of the rule of Christ from the ascension to the second coming.
A particular view of history.
Yeah, it's kind of a philosophy of history. Like when you think about history, even with all the bad stuff, right? And turn on the news.
Sure.
War, famine, death. There's all kinds of bad stuff. Revelation is saying, when you see all the bad stuff on TV, remember all that is happening in the context of the reign of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And it may seem counterintuitive, it may seem surprising, but Revelation is giving an account of what it means to be faithful to the Lamb who reigns, the Messiah who reigns in a world marked by rebellion.